Thanks for clicking on to the Friday edition of Vulcan's European Outlook. Before we get into the video, be sure to like, share and subscribe. I do have the third, not fourth, but third winter update coming up tomorrow. So stay tuned for that here on YouTube and indeed markvulcanweather.com. There will be a publication, an article for you to be able to read and digest as we are getting closer and closer to finalising the ideas of the upcoming 2023-24 winter. I say not the fourth, but the third, because in yesterday's video I did say it was the fourth update. I'm getting a little carried away and ahead of myself. It's only the third update and will probably be the final one before the release of the winter forecast sometime during the latter half of November. Now, of course, in recent days, it's all been about Storm Ciarán, but I did actually fail to mention a couple of important factors in Ciarán's passage through the channel up into southern UK and into the North Sea yesterday, which was very important indeed. Now, of course, we did, and it's been explained extensively here in the channel about the rapid deepening process of Storm Ciarán, all the ingredients coming together, the clash between warm and cold driving a 200-mile-an-hour jet, etc., etc., coming up against the resistance of higher pressure further east that forced the jet to then take that kind of dip just prior to the southeast, the southwest approach of the UK, forced a rapid deepening of the circulation. But also what happened was we started to see a very significant hook and curl in the center of the cloud structure, which represented this hook right here represents downward transfer of energy, exceptionally powerful winds aloft transferring down towards the surface, also known as a sting jet. And of course that was one of the hallmarks of the 1987 storm, which produced the such devastation across not only southern Britain but also northwestern France. And there is an interesting correlation between the 87 storm and Storm Ciarán. Similar track, similar structure to the storm, similar rapid deepening as well. Of course, explained in yesterday's video, we did see a New England low pressure record for November of 953 millibars, a very impressive deep center. But luckily for mainland UK, this was not anywhere near as bad as what took place through the Channel Islands and northwestern France. But this is a very nice representation. You've got all this, strong energy riding in the system, that hook, and of course it's right this bend right here that represents the sting jet here. Another interesting representation of this by my radar weather representing the sting jet descent in region of cold frontal fracture. So you've got a fractured cold front, also a spiral Kaiser type circulation as well, which you've got actually a fractured frontal system, and you've got warm air that kind of actually gets wrapped around the center of that circulation, and that there's that hook, and it's right in that hook. It's like the tail of a scorpion. What you've got is you've got energy that gets transferred down, so descent in the region of the cold frontal fracture. So the air is getting rushed round the actual fractured frontal septum. The actual cold front actually detaches from the center of the circulation, and in comes that air, and helps drag momentum. Strong winds aloft to the surface can be aided by evaporative cooling, which reinforces descent. Additional aid by slantwise convection possible. So a nice little interesting graphic here by my radar weather, and this was the damage produced likely by the sting jet, but also it looks as if there was a tornado produced from the circulation itself. So you can see here, this is from Jersey, and I'll try and get a better view of this. So this was a video captured by somebody and posted it on Twitter, and that very much representative of a tornado. Look at the way the tiles have been stripped off these houses, the devastation caused. It looks like a bombs went off in that street. Now folks, that is without a shadow of a doubt, damage produced by a tornado spinning up off the circulation. So that was a tweet by Trish, and Trish says that here is some storm damage footage from my brother in Jersey. On the mainland of France, this was the damage seen in Brest in the northwest corner of France here. And again, the result of that Stingjet transfer of super strong winds aloft down to the surface, ripping up trees, not as severe but similar type of damage that was seen back in the 1987 storm, and of course that produced record-breaking winds, and also produced a Stingjet back in that fateful night. Of course, luckily for England in particular, the worst of the winds was across the Channel Islands, and indeed across across the mainland of northern France here. This is an interesting tweet here by a French meteorologist here. So Storm Kieran was probably slightly below the storm of October 15th and 16th, 1987, even if locally some weather stations like Brest broke their wind records. But the damage is undoubtedly less significant than in 1987, and during this storm, the anemometer at Point d'Arras was pulverized at 216 kilometers per hour. So last night we seen a wind gust in excess of 207 kilometers per hour, right in the core of the strongest winds produced by Storm Kieran. So you can see here, this is Point d'Arras here, sticking out like a sore thumb, facing directly into that severe westerly wind. And we had a gust of 207, which is transfers to between 128 and 129 miles per hour. And back in 1987, we had a gust of 216 miles per hour, or kilometers per hour, sorry. But you can see here, Brest recording 156 kilometers per hour, which sets a new record here. So very, very impressive winds produced by Storm Kieran, and of course the devastation will take quite a long time for Jersey and Guernsey to recover from that. I think grounds have been all but shut down for now to allow for the cleanup operation to begin. This, by the way, was the wind gusts represented in the 1987 storm. So you can see here locally stronger winds at 216 kilometers per hour, even on this coast here, as well as the 216 produced at Point d'Arras on the Atlantic facing coast here. So very interesting stuff indeed. Now, of course, in yesterday's video, I did look specifically at the rest of November with regards to the outlook. It looks as if there is a possibility of something a little bit more higher pressure development as we push through the course of next week. But this is the latest run of the ECMWF. Let's have a look at the ECMWF today rather than GFS. There's Storm Kieran, still 959 millibars over the North Sea. We're seeing some very heavy persistent rain across the north today. Drier conditions further south and east, but of course it's all eyes on the next feature. Thankfully it's nowhere near as strong as Storm Kieran, but you can see here Kieran moves slowly but surely northwards here. Look at the resistance to the high, both over northwest and Russia, extending through the north of Scandinavia. That is the reason why Storm Kieran, like so many systems we've seen in recent times that's produced extreme rainfall, has not been able to get out of the way anytime quick because of the blocking to the north. That is also another reason why we're seeing storms coming in from a less typical southwesterly direction as opposed to a westerly direction, is because of the blocking high across both Greenland, Iceland and Scandinavia, forcing the storm track further south across the Atlantic. But we are going to start to see changes taking place. But before we get there, here's the next area of low pressure. Notice here, pressure down at 956 millibars, by the way, but it's less tightly compact. So we're going to have a little bit more stretching out of the energy, the wind field, just slightly less strong. We've got a very flabby 956 millibar area of low pressure. We are going to see spells of heavy rainfall falling on already saturated ground, so that's going to likely cause more issues. Further north, clear skies, lighter winds. We are going to see local frost, I think, through the course of this evening here. But further south, especially on the French side of the channel, that's where we're going to see gales redevelop once again during the course of tomorrow here. And as we play through the loop, you see that area of low pressure steadily starting to fill. Then we're left in a legacy of northwesterly winds, relatively light winds over the majority of mainland UK, as you can see here. The strongest of the winds actually to the west of shore of Ireland here, but nonetheless we are going to have a relatively weak northwesterly, showery, cool regime here as we move into the early portion of next week here. And then as we move into next week, you can see here a little bit of a bump in the isobars representative of higher pressure trying to move in here. And then as we move towards the middle portion of next week, the ECMWF has that next frontal system moving through associated with an area of low pressure. But notice the difference. We've got that area of low pressure rather than being further south coming up from the southwest. We've got it more towards the northwest here. And notice here the overall emphasis being on a higher pressure type regime towards the middle and second half of next week here. And then we have got more areas of low pressure, less deep if you notice, but we've got more low pressure to come towards the end of next week seen by the model here. So why are we starting to see these changes taking place? Well, that can be attributed to changes taking place over North America. So if you look at the CFSV2, what we did have was cold Arctic air driving south over the North American continent. That in turn has been enhancing the jet stream across the Atlantic. And you notice here over the next 7 days, we still have the core of the deepest low pressure anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, bang slap over the UK, Ireland, France, and even into the heart of Europe here. So you notice here, as we start to see heights rise over the United States here, what we are going to start to see is a weakening of the Atlantic jet stream. So if we look at week 2 here of the CFSV2, what we've got is we've got a different regime now over North America. That in turn means that we've got less fuel to drive that jet stream across the Atlantic. Yes, we still have low pressure dominating the pattern, but notice that the negative is nowhere near as deep as it is week 1. And it's because we're seeing the changes taking place over North America. We're warming the pressure pattern over the eastern United States, so therefore we don't have as much fuel to drive that jet. And of course, with a weaker jet, we'll have weaker areas of low pressure. And also, we start to see heights rise over the Azores. So it's shifting the storm track further north here, which is quite interesting to see. As we go beyond into week 3, this is the period towards the 17th and the 24th of November here. You notice here that we have higher heights across the Atlantic towards Greenland and also up towards Scandinavia and northwestern Russia here. That may indicate a cooler regime towards the second half of this month, and that has been highlighted both in the November forecast and here in the videos as well. So we're going to have to watch this space, I think, as we start to see a slowing down of the westerly winds and a build-up of pressure. Of course, if you've got a weaker jet stream, you have a greater chance at seeing height rises across the North Atlantic and Greenland. And of course, you start to congregate that area of low pressure over the UK and Ireland here. So lots of things going on. Be sure to check out the content over the course of tomorrow, by the way, because I have got a lot on the winter ideas, the rest of November as well, and I will have content available on the channel, on the website, as well. But you notice here towards the very end of the period, we've got this strong positive here over Scandinavia and over northwestern Russia. Is that having a tropospheric to stratospheric response? Remember what the ECMWF is indicating, that we will start to see a warming of the stratosphere taking place towards early December. Is it blowing? Is it getting us excited about nothing, or has it got some sort of merit down the road here? That is going to be something that I will explore in tomorrow's video, the 3rd winter update. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday evening. Bye for now.